Well, let's talk about, with my guest today, what can we do to connect more with who we are and speak up, open up. I would like to say a warm welcome to you, Rob. Hello.
Thank you. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I am good. I'm delighted because you're going to be talking about a topic that is not something that people talk about very easily. Speak up, open up. Rob has got a fascinating career as an actor, also working in the corporate world. He's a TED speaker. Let's start, Rob, with a little bit about your journey. How did you get here?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, because I'm here because of a consequence of a number of different things. And you rightly said at the start, we find it very difficult to open up and to communicate as men. It's an outdated perspective that we still live with. And I spent much of my life, as you said, there's been some corporate stuff there. I act. I've had a number of different hats that I've worn over the years. And it was in 2016 that I realised there's benefits to opening up and to understanding the impact that not opening up has. I used to be a very busy exec. I'd had a reasonably successful corporate career. I used to have big teams of people. I was head of multimedia at one place with 32 members of staff, with 4 production studios, making lots and lots of adverts and films and content, and loving it on the face of it, with huge responsibilities. So I understood then that the bits of that job that I really enjoyed were people, and that's at the heart of what I've done for years, really. So that led into a number of other similar roles of heads of various different departments for various different organisations, all with the same pressures and responsibilities. And you just get on with it. When you're responsible for teams of people, you have to wear a mask sometimes. The consequence of that is it can be very difficult to actually open up. And as a man, you tend to hide your emotions. We become the stoic man. We build our walls. We close ourselves off as a means of dealing with things. We're told to man up. We're told to grow some balls. We're told to just get on with it. And that's the way that we are conditioned from young children. When you're conditioned like that, in my case, I'm 47, so you're conditioned that way for many, many years, it becomes a very difficult mould to break. But if you don't break it, then, as I said in my TED Talk, which you referenced, Newton's third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And if we refuse to deal with things, whatever things they may be, there is a consequence. That consequence can come out in many ways. It's like water. It will always find a way. In me, I was very effective at work. I did a good job. But over the years, I think those stresses built up, and I didn't really deal with them. Somehow, I'd ended up as a TV producer. On the face of it, anybody outside looking in would think, he's got a great job. He's making TV on a topic that I loved. But I'd never trained to become a TV producer. I'd just done it on merit. So my imposter syndrome kicked in, and that's an interesting thing that crops up every now and then. And I thought, am I qualified to be doing all this sort of stuff? And in reality, yeah, I was qualified, because it turned into a really successful TV series, and I thoroughly enjoyed making it. Then I had a wake-up call, and this is why I now do what I do, and why I don't do what I used to do.
Yes.
And why I coach people on how to make change. It was in 2016, and I was under intense pressure at work in this TV production job. To the extent that, well, it was pressure like I'd never experienced before. There was tremendous deadline pressures. There was ridiculous budgetary pressures. I was setting the deadlines. I was working with the budgets the best I could. But I was unaware of the impact that this accumulation of stresses over the years was having on me. If we're not aware of something, we can't actually do anything about it. And I was unaware. We get into repeating cycles of behaviour. We're not aware that we're in them, because we just blindly go about our business. And I was blindly going about my business, and I was doing it in a very efficient way, in a very professional way, until it slapped me in the face. And then I had no choice but to be aware. What I now want to help other people with is becoming aware earlier on in the process and not waiting until the time when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, drenched in a cold sweat, in a physical and a mental panic, which is the state that I got myself into inadvertently. As I say, it's like water, it finds a way, and with me, it came out like that. An earlier sign from previous stresses in my life, again, which was a red flag, but I never really understood it as a red flag. I had a particularly difficult time a few years ago, dealt with it, closed it off like you do. And 18 months later, I came out, I had skin cancer on my face. Again, you just deal with it.
So there was a sign, but it was
a physical sign, and I hadn't been in any sun, so it certainly wasn't related to that.
So your body was talking to you.
My body was telling me to just take care, but I ignored it and I carried on. And then, so this morning in 2016, when I kind of woke up drenched in a sort of stress sweat for the first time in my life, and my heart rate was going through the roof. And I understand about different heart rate zones because I'm a relatively fit guy, and my heart rate was not where it should have been. And so that really was the moment that I decided to make some changes. And it's that moment that drives me to help other people not to hit. Does that make sense? And to recognise the signs a little bit earlier on. And there's a number of things involved in that. It's awareness, but then it's breaking through this stigma about not being able to speak up. It's a really interesting conundrum. Our first place that we think of going to when that awareness light comes on, well, the first temptation as a guy is to deal with it yourself, as we've covered.
Yes.
But then there's little solace in solitude. Typically, the first place that we turn to are family and friends, because they're the people that know us the best. That is the first step, and that is brilliant. But sometimes you need a little bit more than that. You need somebody who is impartial, who can see the issues for what they are, without history and without politic or whatever it may well be that goes on in families and best friends. So, personally, I went to see the doctor. I said I need to talk to somebody, and that was a big step, to be quite honest. But the simple process of doing that relieves a lot of the concern anyway, because you've made that decision in your own head. So having done that, you're then into the primary care system, if you like. It's a great service, but sometimes it lacks because it's under pressure. It's under huge pressure at the moment. Personally, I am a believer in talking. My request to speak to somebody, which I kind of self-diagnosed myself. I didn't want to take any drugs or anything like that. It took 3 months to see somebody. So, tying this all in, if we have a problem opening up, but then when we do, it takes 3 months to actually see somebody. If I was in a situation where I was mentally weaker or under more stress and not really certain of where to go, 3 months is far too long. I didn't become a statistic, but this is the essence behind why I'm doing what I'm doing. The statistics around men's mental health are stark and eye-opening. To put that into context, I was invited to a suicide prevention strategy at South Yorkshire. And I talk about this openly in hope that it becomes less stigmatised. I use the word crisis very carefully, but we're bordering on it at the moment. The stats that I got on that day were between 2005 and 2015, in a 10-year span, 64,603 people committed suicide in this country, in the UK. Of that figure, only 17,823 were visible to the mental health authorities or service providers, which is 28%. That means that 72% of those people who were in a desperate enough situation to decide to take their own lives weren't visible to the professional services who could help them. And that ties into my previous point about taking 3 months to see somebody. I wasn't at that point, but if somebody is at that point, that 3 month gap is unacceptable. This 72% of people who aren't visible to the service providers, who have scales of difficulty, we need to put something in place to help these. This is the essence of Life Cycle, and it's the essence of Man Rebranded, about raising awareness, encouraging people to open up, and then giving them somewhere to go. Man Rebranded is a very man-focused message, because the whole essence of that is getting guys to be aware about the benefits of opening up. But it touches parents. Parents can have an influence. Partners can have an influence as well. I've had some fantastic comments already on the TED Talk from women as well as men who have said, this is an important message. And I will share it as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter. So, although it says Man Rebranded, we all know men, so we can all have an input and an influence on this.
Yes.
It's awareness, it's support, it's having somewhere to go, but then it's taking action and actually doing something about it. But many of us are victims of procrastination, and we are really good at putting things off. The key to breaking repeating cycles of behaviour is by setting goals, making sure that those goals are right and that they have a lot of things in there that make them compelling. When we go through the process of setting goals, and this is the essence of life cycle, we have to make sure that they're the right goals for us. If something makes the hairs stand up on your arm or on the back of your neck, it's worth listening to. That's what I've learned over the years. They have been the basis of the goals that I've set, because then you're more engaged, then you're more committed to doing something. If we undertake a goal that somebody else tells us to do, like go for that job because you'll be a really good manager, it might be right for us, but it might not. And then it will lose its impetus, it will lose its energy. But then once we've established what that goal is, and it's right, and it's all of those things that we're taught at school, you know, smart, achievable, realistic, time constrained, all of those smart analogies, but we go beyond that into day-to-day activities that get us out of those failure cycles and into our achievement cycles. If we do something every day that helps us towards our goal, we've got a much better chance of hitting it. But to be asked to do that on your own, there's a chance of falling back into old ways and to repeat behaviours. If we've got someone there to help us through the process, to handhold, to guide, to push, if we've got someone to let down, the chances are we'll see it through. And that's the essence of what I do at Lifecycle. It's helping people to understand the situation that they're in by raising awareness. It's giving them that support, but then it's working hand in hand with them to set those goals and to achieve those goals and to work with them through that process and to make sure that they don't slip back into repeating patterns of behaviour, which as humans we do very, very easily for many, many reasons which are beyond this conversation, but there's many compelling reasons why we don't like to change. It's a huge area. Again, some of the statistics. 300,000 people a year lose their jobs because of mental health related issues. It's over 5,700 people every week.
Wow.
So if you imagine 3 Wembley Stadiums or 3 Twickenhams, it's that many people a year lose their job because of being unable to speak up and deal with things at work. And we spend 70% of our time at work. So all of these conversations that we're having all combine because, again, if you take the guy angle on it, we don't speak up. We're even less likely to speak up at work because if we turn up to work and we're not 100% effective, we're not going to say anything to our bosses or our managers because A, it could be seen as an admission of weakness, B, it could be seen as being inefficient, and how equipped is he to do the job that we're paying him to do? And all that manifests itself in those statistics that we gave earlier on. We don't speak up at work. This needs to change. It has to change because, well, fundamentally, there's a legal responsibility anyway as employers to look after the health of our staff. But where is that intervention? Where is that support at work? Because everybody in that environment is targeted with departmental targets or budgets or profitability or shareholder results or whatever that may well be. We need to break through the stigma of being unable to speak up at work. There's 4 elements that I provide to businesses, and that's speaking, going in and speaking within these businesses and raising awareness. There's listening and being that resource, and it doesn't have to be a costly resource, that's the thing, but it's somebody who can go in, independent, who isn't tied by politics, who isn't tied by departmental budgets, whose focus is on that person opposite, the other side of the table. And then I run workshops, and then I run one-to-one coaching.
Brilliant.
So there's 4 elements to what I do for businesses.
Well, I'd like to say thank you so much, Rob, for coming on today's show.
Thank you.
And you'll find more about Rob on his website, Rob Mitchell.
There's 3 websites. There's www.robmitchell-james.com.
James.com.
There's www.lifecyclecoaching.co.uk. And there is, again, www.manrebranded.com.
Brilliant.
Thank you.